So yesterday we started having some idea on how we should identify a particular system and the tables that are existing. And whenever you're working with your tables, querying is not a big task, but you need to just keep an idea on the reason why we are actually trying to go for the sake of the query. And whenever your query is producing the data, you should understand the query is producing the data by which column, for which purpose, with what cardinalities. Now, every select statement can be just executed by the syntax and we can conclude by just defining what the select statement is. But having the reasons for why the select statement is being implemented or it is being executed is very important. Now, anyhow, I don't think we'll see very complicated and very critical reasons why we are writing the select statements at this level. But day by day, as we start moving on, we'll start becoming mature on the process. Finally, our goal is not writing the select statement. Finally, our goal is, can we provide a query that can provide a solution to the end user's problem? So whenever the end user is keeping the problem in front of us, how many number of times we can capture through that particular piece of the problem and give a solution? So when you are having a table can have any number of columns with any number of records. Now initially I am not interested in the selection principle, but I am definitely interested in the projection principle first. If you are understanding a projection principle, then we'll slowly start keeping a leg into the concept and criteria of the selection principles. Now, if your table is having some n number of columns, now the issue can arise in such a way that we want to project all the columns that are existing in the table. This could be one of the requirements. Now, when you want all the columns from your table, you can always declare the column names independently for that table and you can start querying the data. Now, if your table is too long with many number of columns, declaring each and every column to get the data can be really time consuming. So, under such kind of circumstances, your databases will provide you one special kind of operator. We call this operator as projection operator. So this projection operator's job is to identify as many number of columns as they are existing in the table and get you the data. So we just call the select statement and we will define the projection operator, giving an instruction that I want all the columns from the table what I want to mention, and from is your class which is identifying the data source, and EMP or anything what you're representing here is nothing but the data source from which you want to get the data. Currently our data source is nothing but the table. So writing a select statement for a very simple requirement is not difficult task. You can just watch here. I'm saying describe DEPT. It's containing 3 columns. Now I just want all the 3 columns of data as it is. So in such case I can always say select star and I'm saying from DEPT, and then we are going with a semicolon. Now whenever you write any particular SQL statement, having an idea on every component of the SQL statement is very important. So we can just watch here. If you are speaking about this, an SQL statement for querying the data from the database source. Generally a table. So that is only the statement that is provided by SQL. And in general it is used for sake of querying the data from the table as a data source. Now then we are having this projection operator. Now whenever you are working with your projection operator, so it is a projection operator which projects all the columns from the table. Now the third what you are having here, an SQL clause used in select statement for identifying the data source for which the data has to be projected or selected. Okay, so that's a class that's basically trying to identify the composition of the source from where you want to get the data. So this is the name of the data source from where we have to query the data. Usually a table. Generally it will be a table, it's not compulsory, it should be a table. Then you are having the token to instruct SQL engine to execute the SQL statement. Can be used only at SQL prompts. It should be used only at SQL prompt. Be very clear about that. So when you take any SQL statement, every SQL statement I cannot do like this. But one thing what I want to say is, any SQL statement you write, you should have clarity on the fundamental components of the SQL statement compulsorily. Now for students who are just trying to come as beginners, it is compulsory. For people who are trying to just give you experience, you have to definitely understand this if you are first time people who are learning SQL. So when you take any particular SQL statement, an SQL statement has multiple different number of components in that. Each component has one kind of responsibility for which it is working. The rule of the responsibility is not clear to you, then I don't think you can understand any kind of errors when they are coming in front of you. So you can always make correction to your errors only when technically you have clarity on each and every component of your SQL statement. So once I feel that my SQL statement is very proper by its construct, I can press my enter key and this is my data that's coming in front of me now. So whenever the data is coming, the data is not difficult for us to understand, but behind every data means anytime your data is presented, there is some kind of standardized information that you need to recognize how exactly it's being presenting through the data. Be very clear about that. So if that's the data what is coming on your screen, you should always understand these components within your data. So every time your data is there, normally if you can just watch, we call them as column names. But in projection, whenever you are going into them, the technical word is column headers. So it's a column name within the table. When projected, we generally call it as what? Column headers or column labels. So do I need to be very serious with this kind of terminology? It's better. Why? Because your terminology makes a big lot of difference. Be very, very clear about these constructs. Now, between your columns and your actual data that you are presenting, we have one line, we generally call this as header separator. By default, the header separator is defined by Oracle's environment, which continuously has one hyphen continuously moving on now. So that's a general header separator to tell you that there is data and there is a column header in the process. Now in the same constraint, if you just watch very carefully, between the columns you are having one space. The space that is given between the columns of data is called as column separator. Default column separator is space. If you want, you can always keep that column separator to be changed. You can change the column separator to a comma. if at all we need. But generally, that's a very common column separator you can always find. And whenever you are trying to work out, once the data is presented, a set of values which are coming under one column header are nothing but called as column of values. You have a set of column of values that get represented in the process. A single value what you are trying to see, is called as a field. It should be atomic by nature, means one value should represent one particular piece of the location of the record. So whenever you try to work out all this data, what you are seeing in one single row is generally called as a record or tuple. So when one output is coming on your screen, there is some terminology that is associated with it. If we do not know the terminology, I don't say that great problems will arise. But when you are sitting in front of your client and is a technical guy, you could be using this kind of terminology and you should not have any kind of fundamental confusions. There are certain things you should always remember. You just watch very carefully. You are having numbers here. Your numbers are always kept to the right side of the column. In that column, your numbers are always kept to the right side of the column because it has to maintain the place values. So technically try to understand certain things that basically that are followed whenever a query is executed. Number data is right aligned in the column. Character or date data is always left aligned within that particular piece of the column automatically. And whenever you are coming to the construct, column headers are always kept in uppercase. Means you can just watch the column labels or headers are always in uppercase. There's a general standard, be very, very clear about those constructs. Column headers are truncated on character and date data but not on numbers. You will understand this at the later stage. Let us not worry about that immediately. Number columns, whenever they are operated by left padding. Now whenever you are talking about left padding, how many pads will come now? From the left side, total number of pads are 10. So as many number of digits are there, they are occupied and remaining will be spaces. What do you mean? You just watch here. I'm having department number which is basically of how many digits now? 2 digits. But watch very carefully. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 spaces plus 9 and 10. So your number columns on the screen, they're always represented for only 10 digits. So if I'm having more than 10 digits, it converts into scientific notation, exponentiation. So if a number has to be presented very perfectly, the front-end developers have to take the responsibility. SQL developers do not take any responsibility. The job of the SQL developers is return the data, that's all. So if the number is more than 10 digits, automatically gets converted into scientific notations, and any time a number is up to 10 digits, the total number will be represented. If it is less than 10 digits, as many number of digits are less, so many number of pads are automatically applied from the left side. So these are very common constructs, and after your total data is presented, automatically you are given one null line, and then your SQL prompt will be returning, waiting for the sake of the next query on the process. Be very clear about that. So whenever you start working with your construct of your select statement, if you know the table from which you want to actually get the data, then technically what is the kind of data you want to get, that should be your own priority. So while learning, you may be learning the things in one way, but when you are implementing, you should be very clear on the process of its implementation. The same way you just watch here, we are having one table called as sal grade, where in this particular table, Oracle will try to mention all the different grades to which your salaries are identified in your company. Now, if you are just going into this, in this particular table you watch, all the columns are numbers by nature. Number data type can have a size declared. Number data type sometimes may not have a size that is declared. So when number data type is not declared with size, what happens? Oracle will occupy the size as per the number of digits what you are giving. This is a facility that is provided only from 10th version. Be very clear about that. Prior 10th version, number data type should be declared with a size. But starting from the latest versions, Oracle never demands that number data type should be declared with a size. At runtime, when you provide the data to the number of digits what you have provided, it occupies that much amount of space and releases the remaining space automatically. Anyhow, once you are getting this data, you just want, in my salary grade table, what are the different grades in the salaries what I am having now. So these are the 5 different grades what you are having in your company. Now from 700 to 1200, we have the grade as 1. From 1201 to 1400, if anybody is having salary, we treat it as what, 2. So these grades are representing the range with which the salaries could be allocated to your particular employees. Now you watch here, all these columns are number columns. So all your numbers are represented to which side? Right side. Just because when your numbers are aligned to the right side, the place value can be maintained very perfectly. You need to just look into that particular fact. Therefore, Oracle has its own intelligence to understand which are numbers, which are characters, and which are basically dates. It has very clear intelligence of that whenever it is presenting the data. Second thing, in this particular column, we are having only how many digits? One single digit. But you watch, the column is always represented with the total column header, including additional padding that is taking place on the process. Means whenever your number columns are represented, your number column names are represented definitely to the total name, whatever you are providing for the header. They are not truncated. Means columns are never kept to the exact size to which the digits are belonging. It's not happened. It's just never represented like that. So your column headers are very clear, such that you can start understanding what's happening behind that particular piece of the data. Now, in these 2 tables, we are having only 3 columns each, which can fit onto this particular screen definitely. But you just watch here, we are saying describe EMP. Your EMP table is containing total 8 columns. Now these 8 columns of data has to be presented on your screen. Therefore you just watch when we are saying select star from EMP. These 8 columns of data should come onto the screen. Now for first time beginners, they may have their own fundamental confusions in certain areas which are not important, but they just get dragged on concentrating on those areas and not coming to conclusions. So as the number of columns are increasing in your table and you query the data, Oracle automatically knows how to wrap the output onto the screens. So generally a student will get confused, a beginner will get confused on these kind of issues. So why it is happening like this? See, we are not the presentation engineers of the world. First understand this. Presentation is always done by whom? Front-end developers. So how best the data should be presented, they have to take the responsibility. Our job is only operating and manipulating the data in the database and giving the data set to the front-end developer. So when we give the data set, only the data will go. The arrangement of the data will never go. Arrangement of the data should be done by the front-end developers definitely. Try to understand this. But on your screen, when your output is coming like this, first thing you don't need to really get excited about this. Because according to Oracle, what is happening? According to Oracle, this white space, what you are trying to see is like one paper. So Oracle is thinking that it is printing the output of the select statement on one particular paper. You are selecting the data, but Oracle, after selecting the data, it is printing the output onto your particular paper. So when the output is being presented, now this output is nothing but a paper that will be passed to one printer, let us say. Now any paper will have finite length and finite width, or infinite length with infinite width now. Finite length with finite width. So here technically what you should understand is, your printer is considered as a process here with A4 sheet paper on which the data is getting printed. So whenever your Oracle thinks that this department number column is unable to fit into the same width of the paper, then automatically it is wrapping this particular column to the next line. So this is called as column wrapping. Your SQL always has its own intelligence to wrap the columns automatically. So it is very clearly understanding that this particular column is unable to fit into the same width of the paper. Therefore it went into the next line. So if more number of columns are there, they will go on wrapping automatically. That's the reason for large scale tables, when you are writing any particular query, be careful. Why? Because if the number of columns of the table are more, Your output is correct, but your output presentation may look very inconvenient for you. Therefore, actually SQL developers will give their outputs to whom? Front-end developers. We just pass the result sets to them. Therefore, I told you that's the reason your select statement is operating with the correct logic or not. That is what you should analyze from the class. You're not capturing the fundamental analysis to your logic with which the query is written, then definitely I don't think you can give good solutions. Therefore, as a normal developer, you should not get worried about these outputs that are coming like this. If suppose you speak about these kind of things with your friends, they may be suggesting you like, don't try to operate with the SQL statements directly with respect to your SQL prompt. You can directly move on through the process. You can directly move on through the process and you can start presenting them with something like a code-like utility. That's how people will try to make you get introduced with tools. See, working with tools is not a problem for me. And I'll also feel very happy with tools. But you just watch here, whenever you're working with this tool, it gives you some editor where you can do the job. Now I'm just putting my statement over there, and in the editors, your semicolon will not help you for execution. I told you, semicolon is only for the sake of what? SQL prompt. So in your editors, in your tools, when you want to execute something, you use different tools have different facilities now. So you are just trying to say shift plus F9. You got the data. So normally a student will be happy when he sees the output at the bottom in a tabular format. Now this is good or bad, I don't want to say. But if you start working with tools, many of the internal standards of the Oracle you will miss. Technical architecture of Oracle you will miss. So if I miss my technical architecture, what happens? First 3 years in your job, you will be very happy. After 3rd year is completed, your fear will start from the body automatically, because after 3 years, any company will feel that you are looking costly for them. It is as simple as this. When you are joining any company, no company has problem with you, because you are the cheapest resource for them. 1 year has crossed. Automatically, you are given one increment. Your salary is increasing. When your salary is increasing, what will be the attitude of the employer? Can you just tell me? Your salary has increased, and what will be the attitude of the employer? You have to give more work as per the increase of the salary. More work doesn't mean that if I am increasing your salary, you will work for 10 hours for me. 8 hours is standard, no doubt about it. So within that 8 hours, you have to give me more amount of work, that's all. But after increasing the salary, I feel that last year, whatever work you have done, the same work you are doing next year also. No change in that. Logic is same, methodology is same, process is same, everything is same. But your salary has increased. Slowly, somewhere my mind is not happy. 2nd year crossed, once again you get your salary for the 3rd year incremented. Your work culture is not changing. The same 8 hours you are working, the same work you are doing what you did 3 years back. My mind automatically tells, in 3 years this guy's salary became 50,000, but he's doing the same job, exactly the same work in the same stereotypic method. 3 years back what he was doing for 20,000. Somewhere my mind says, why don't I remove this person and get another fresher who can work for the same 20,000 for me? So jobs are never lost in the industry. Jobs definitely will be lost if you don't make a change in your technical culture. You take 10 lakh rupees salary per month, nobody is worried about it, but give me 10 lakhs worth work. That should look very different in the markets. Therefore, working with a tool makes 60% of your work easy. When your work became easy, why I should give you higher salary? Second, tool never explains the internal architecture of the technology. Therefore, when you work at the core levels, you'll understand the behavior of the technology, and I also will get a chance to explain you that particular behavior, which will help you for higher levels of your career. Be very clear about that. So it's very easy for me, rather than discussing for another 5 minutes on this, telling you when your table is very lengthy, go to your Toad-like tool and type your SQL statement to get the correct data. You are happy, I am also happy from my side. There were tools you want to use, you do not want to use, I don't know. But I am not interested in the tool at any point of time from my classes. You should always understand the things at the core SQL prompt itself. So one thing what I want to say is, when you're writing any select statement at your SQL prompt, the output of the select statement, in which way it is arranged, don't get worried. Are you catching the point now? Your logic is correct or not? Your output, what you're expecting, came with the correct data or not? You should concentrate only on the logic, and the corresponding state of the output that came is proper to that particular scenario or not. Its presentation need not trouble us. That's first thing. Second thing, generally when cross comparing with the outputs, what the student says is, sir, in this particular case when I executed select statement, it was giving me my header only once. But in this particular case when I am working, it is repeating my header again and again. Your header is repeating or not? Yes. Now this way the student just gets confused. Nothing, man. Oracle is having one simple fundamental common sense. We said that this is a paper on which you are actually printing the output. According to that, it's giving the outputs now. Now when you are scrolling the data, when you are scrolling this particular piece of the screen, after some time these headers are going out of the screen now. Whenever a header goes out of the screen, Oracle releases the next set of the headers for your convenience to compare. Be very clear about that. It's as simple as you're having data that should be written in 10 pages. Now, whenever the first page is completed, in the second page, are you not writing the column headings once again and then you're writing it down now? The same intelligence. So, whenever Oracle is thinking that the paper is getting rolled off, automatically it is trying to start the new headers each and every time. So, you don't need to really worry about that repetition of the headers. Next thing, sir, after my total data is presented, it is giving me how many number of rows have been selected. But in the previous cases, Oracle was not giving me the number of rows that have been selected when I was selecting from department and salary. There's nothing to get worried here. Select statement at SQL prompt. I'm making my points very clear. Select statement at SQL prompt will start printing the number of rows that are selected from the table only when the minimum count of number of records is 6. So here how many number of records we are having? 4. And in this case I am having how many number of records now? 5. So it was not giving the number of records that are presented. Now here the number of records are 6 or more than 6. Automatically it will give you the count. So this kind of small thing should not be a botheration of process for you people. But a beginner always concentrates on these things, therefore I'm just trying to keep my time into that. Next thing. Generally this paper is designed for 80 column printer. Now here you may have your doubt, so department number is coming in the next line, but actually after the commission we are having extra space. See, I'm working on a high resolution monitor now. When we are working on high resolution monitors, we may feel as if the length of the screen is very high. But actually, as per the construct of the calculation, that is exactly 80 columns of data what you can print. So whenever it thinks that your data is more than 80 columns in the sense like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, in this way, when you count it, each character is treated as one column of representation. Your columns of database is different, what I am speaking now is different. I am speaking on the computer level. What you are talking is database level, okay? So please try to differentiate yourself. So whenever you think that this number of columns are becoming more for representation, automatically the data comes to the next line. So what is the way? There are two methods here, okay? There are two methods. I just want to show you one simple independent method. There is nothing but I can tell my SQL prompt saying that set line size 120. I can tell my SQL prompt, please adjust the size of the line to 120 characters. This is only a buffer command. Be very clear about that. For this session, till I don't change, it will internally think that the printer should operate for a paper that can print 120 columns of the characters. So once I said that, you just watch. I am saying select star from EMP. My data is adjusted. Because we said please release few more number of columns in the buffer, it released and your department number is automatically adjusted to the same line. Now here, now the data is going for 2 times header you want, not multi-time header. Because much of the data is automatically fitting into the paper. Now I don't want this header also to be repeated twice. Now actually my page height now, we generally call it as page size. Your page size is designed by Oracle in such a way that it can take up to around 14 lines of data, not more than that. Whenever more than 14 lines of data comes, automatically it repeats. So what I can tell my Oracle is set page size. And I am saying 20. So what I am telling my Oracle is set the page size for 20 lines of output. So once I set this and I am calling the select statement, now it's just presenting my data perfectly to my requirement. Actually these things are not necessary for a normal SQL developer, but your outputs you have to understand always. Therefore generally today I am speaking in front of you about these commands, but daily when I start your session, before your session I will execute these 2 set commands and then I will keep my environment ready. Be very clear about that. Therefore I cannot repeat some things every day. So are they compulsory? Actually they are not compulsory, but only for better presentation we need them, that's all. Another way we can always do is, actually this employee number column is having employee numbers with how many digits? 4 digits. You are having some extra pads on this side, yes or no? Now these pads, if I can tell my Oracle please remove them, then I think my employee number column can adjust towards the left side in a better way. So you can just watch. For that we will say column, what is the name of the column, we'll pick up that, okay, and we say format. Now employee number column is which data type? Number data type. My maximum size of the numbers is how much? 4 digits. So each digit is represented by 9. So I am saying that please adjust this column for maximum how many digits? 4 digits. So once we are saying that please adjust this column for maximum of 4 digits, each 9 represents 1 digit indicator. Now once I said this, you watch carefully, my employee number is now adjusted by eliminating those extra pads. But remember one thing, anywhere the employee number column comes, it will always adjust for the sake of the 4 digits. Now you may ask me, so we said only 4 digits, but it's giving one extra space. This extra space is for sign of the number, positive or negative. That sign will be definitely available. Be very clear about that. You cannot eliminate it. The same way, you just watch here. My salaries are how many digits, Yaman? 4 digits. We have few 3 digits also, but maximum is what? 4 digits. But it is padding for how many? 10. So I can adjust this particular size, I hope so. In that way, majority of the columns, I think we have that size what we can adjust. Do you agree with me? So, whenever you are using column command, this is a SQL command. It's not a SQL statement. How many characters we have? How many characters we have in column command? 6 characters are there. I told in one of my class, SQL commands can be typed for half of their actual size. That's how we can say only call. I want to adjust my MGR column. Call the MGR column here. Now here format is also one kind of command only. So technically we are having 6 now. So we can use 3. And it is 4 digits. 1, 2, 3, 4. So MGR column is also adjusted to exactly those 4 digits width. Remember one thing. Whatever changes I am doing here, these changes are only to buffer. They are not in the original table. Be very clear about that. So this column command is not making any changes to the size of the column in the table. It's only doing that only for the sake of this buffer. Try to understand these particular factors very clearly. The same way you just was only for your convenience I am showing you. I am saying column shall format. So you can just check your salary is also adjusting to the correct size. The same way I'm saying column commission, I'm saying format for 4 digits. I'm showing you only for the sake of convenience. Okay, generally I don't prefer this individual adjustments. Still I don't feel that there is some requirement for which I have to do it. Generally I'll prefer that line size and page size. The same way, I just want to understand one very important construct. The department number is only 2 digits, but department number header is how many characters? 6. So you just watch here, we are saying column, department number, format 99. Okay, I said only 99, but you just watch here, it is adjusting to the width of the column header. So anytime you are taking a number column width will not adjust exactly to what you gave. The number column width adjusts according to the column header what you are having. If your column header is too lengthy, the total header will be adjusted. Be very clear about that, not exactly to that number of digits. But characters are not like that. Now you watch here, your ename here is maximum to this size and other is exactly unwanted spaces or no. So you are having maximum size of the name with how many characters? 6 characters. So I can always say column ename format. This is which data type? Tell me, character data type. So characters are represented on the screen in SQL as ASCII values. Therefore we will say A. A represents ASCII. How many ASCII characters we are having here to the maximum? 6. So we will say 6. So don't use character columns and number columns with the same format. Be very clear about that. Are you catching the point now? So that A represents ASCII. So we are saying that please adjust the width of the column on my screen to the maximum of 6 ASCII character size. So now you just watch, my employee's name is adjusted. But there's one small thing you need to consider here. I'm going with my employee's name, let us say, it is having how many? Maximum 6, but I gave 3. Now whenever I give 3, what happens is, watch, it will automatically wraps that particular data in the same column. So character columns have the general intelligence of what? Wrapping their data within the same column when the width of the column is adjusted less than the actual size. See, these all behaviors are only for our fundamental identity. If I said column of A1, then automatically you can just watch, it wraps within that particular piece of the column. Your data will be wrapping within that particular column because you said it's only one single character. Therefore, when dealing with your columns for width of the characters, please give proper size so that you don't have any kind of fundamental confusions. So once again I said A6, so it started adjusting that with what? 6 characters. But watch carefully with numbers now. Okay, with numbers I wanted to check something. Now in salary, what is the maximum size of the digits for salary is 4. And I have few with 3 also. Do you agree with me? Now watch carefully. I'm saying column sal and I'm saying format A3. But actually my maximum number of digits are how many? 4 digits. Now you did this and then you said please execute. You will get this pound symbol on the process. So whenever you represent a column which is a numerical with ASCII, it gives you an error like this. Are you catching the point now? So technically, whenever you say that I want a numerical column with ASCII representation, it cannot represent that. Therefore, it gives you a pound symbol. Whenever a pound symbol is coming, there could be 2 reasons. You have either handled that column as a character type. Another reason. Now you can just watch, I said 9999 once again. It comes to the originality. Now I'm having maximum how many digits? 4 digits. I made only 3 digits now. My size is less than the actual number of digits. Characters automatically go for what? Wrapping. But numbers will not wrap wherever I have 4 digits, they are pound symbols, you watch. Wherever 3 digits are there, they are getting represented. So you should always understand one thing, number columns are never wrapped. Number columns are never wrapped. They are always represented the correct size. Anytime you represent a number column, less than its the size of the digits, it automatically gives you pound symbol. So please see that you are representing a number columns properly with the requirement. No confusions on the process. Be very, very clear about it. So these are all some simple things you need to always capture whenever you are trying to work with the compositions. So writing a select statement is not difficult, but when a select statement is done, the common sense of the rule is very important when you are working as a beginner. Try to understand that. Therefore, can I get all the columns from the table? This is a simple concept. But I am not interested in can you write a select statement for all the columns. I am interested in when the output comes, how much you are understanding about the output on your fundamental screen. In the same way, what is the guarantee that I need all the columns from my table? So whenever I need only certain columns from my table, we can always go for the sake of retrieving the data for certain columns in which we are interested, and we can always declare a select statement by declaring the column names, separating the column names with their own comma delimiters. So we can project our own columns the way we are interested. So from any table, you want only specific columns, you don't need to really worry about that particular process. And you don't need to really represent in the same order also. What I mean, I am saying select department number, comma, dname, comma, location. I am having 3 columns and I am getting the data from 3 columns. So you may just say like, sir, we can go for projection operator. But what I mean to say is in the place of projection operator, if you are comfortable, you can individually declare the columns also. But whenever you are declaring individual columns, there is no rule that the column should follow the same order which is there in the table. I can always say, give me the location first and the department name next. We can just change the order of the columns by our own declarations within our own requirement. So when projection of the columns is done, every column should be projected in the same order to the table is not a rule. I can just ask my query saying that get me the department number, comma, the location where the department number is existing. I can skip any columns, whatever I don't need, and I can just go with it. The same way if you are having describe EMP, these are the 8 columns we are having. I want to get the employee's number, I want to get the employee's name, and I want to know the department number of the employee. Out of 8 columns, I want only 3 columns of data now. So I am just declaring those 3 columns. Now watch carefully, my employee number and e-name are first and second column. The department number is the last column in my table. But here it is the 3rd column. So the columns, when they are called for projection, you don't need to worry about that. The order is your choice. The way you call. The column should be part of the table, that's all. There were certain things I just want to catch here. Once again, you need certain amount of terminology. There is nothing but, these are nothing but called as projected columns. These are fundamentally called as projected columns. In general common sense, these all columns together, in normal common sense we call them as select list. We generally call that as a select list. In between the columns we have a delimiter called as what? Comma. So try to identify the terminology very carefully, because the terminology plays an important role when you are leading towards technical discussions in your particular projects. So once you are writing any particular select statement, behind the select statement there is some criteria. So today we are projecting 3 columns from the table called as EMP, where it has 8 columns by its nature. Now I can always say select e-name, comma, what is his salary, the department in which he is working, the designation for which he has been recruited. So I am calling my columns in the order in which I am interested. The columns need not be called in the original order with which they exist in the table. So according to the requirement of my client, I can declare the columns in their own order what my client is demanding or not. Therefore, first column is first, second column is second is not a rule. Try to understand that. Therefore, we have a very flexible SQL statement mechanism provided by Oracle. Not only Oracle, any database has this kind of flexibility. After the last column, we should not mention any comma. So this comma is representing that I have another column after this. These all columns are existing in the table or non-existing in the table? Existing in the table. Now in all these columns, you have a value or you are missing any values? We are having a value. So these all columns come under which property? These all columns come under which property? Can you tell me the state of the relation? Mandatory. They are all coming under the mandatory state. Now I want certain things from you. One employee will have only one department, or one employee can have multiple departments? One employee has only one department. So you watch, king is represented by only one department. That's how from the table to the column, it is always what? Atomic by nature, 1 to 1. In one department, we can have only one employee or many employees? Many employees. So can you tell me why these department numbers are repeating now? It is a one to many. In one department, we can have many number of employees. Whenever many comes, automatically the data will repeat. That's what I think 24 hours back we was trying to say that. One employee has only one designation or many designations? One designation. So Jones is what now? Manager. With one designation, we can have only one employee or many employees? Many employees. So you can just watch, the manager is repeating because many employees are there. So when the output comes, you should not feel happy. My output came and your 14 records are there and SQL prompt is returning none. Whenever an output comes, you should sit and analyze the cardinality and the state of the relations carefully. Try to understand this particular factor. Now, let us just go with one more case. I am saying select employee's name is having salary and we are presenting the commission. Every employee should have a salary or may have a salary? Should have a salary. Every employee should have a commission or may have commission? May have commission. Wherever we say it may be, so nulls. That is optionality. So why you did not get the data here? You cannot tell anybody, I also don't know. So now you have reasons why the data is not coming in some of the records of this column. Because every employee should have a commission is not a rule. For those employees who are not having commission, we are getting which now? What is the state here? Null. 0 is not equal to null. Be very clear about that. 0 is a represented value. Null is not a value. Null is a state. Null is absence of the data. If anybody says null is equal to space, null is equal to null is equal to 0, now that is their headache and believing is your headache now. Be very clear about that. Null is a non-representational number. Null is a non-representational value. So on the screen, a null can look like a space, but actually it's not a space, it's absence of data. Be very, very clear about that. Therefore, wherever a column says that I can be optional, in that column there is a chance nulls can come. So whenever a null is coming, you should understand that the analyst has given the process for what now? The analyst has given the process for what now? He has given the process for sake of optionality. Be very clear about it. Therefore, null can come. The same way, every employee should have an employee number or may have an employee number. Should have an employee number. Every employee should have a name or may have a name. Should have a name. Every employee should be controlled by a manager or may be controlled by a manager. May be controlled by a manager. Okay. Now there are other few questions I want to answer now. Every employee is a manager or may be a manager. May be a manager. Every manager should be an employee or maybe an employee? Should be an employee. One manager can control one employee or many employees? Many employees. You take any application, this cardinality should run in your brain. Not only for EMP. So how I can understand the cardinality? That is a domain knowledge. There were especially people keeping experience in your resume. When we ask you the rule of the cardinality and the state for your project, you have to explain us. So that can come only when you are definitely working for your project and you are really done with your project. Be very clear about that. So you just watch here. I am saying that my employees who are having managers, these managers are nothing but the employees who are working in my company. So this MGR column is a very interesting column. I am putting the first level fundamentals into your brain now. You watch carefully. This king is having an employee number. He is having an employee's name. But is he having the managerial number? No. So this shows that king is one of the employee in my company who cannot be managed by other employees. So he is very clear saying that I am an employee who cannot be controlled by another employee. So that is optionality. That is optionality. Therefore, when you give an answer, you will automatically understand the reasons here. You don't concentrate on the state and the cardinalities, you will never understand why the data is coming like this. One employee should have only one employee number or many employee numbers. One employee number. One employee number should be allocated to only one employee or many employees. Only one employee. So it is fundamentally which kind of cardinality? 1 to 1. Do you find employee numbers repeating anywhere here? No. So when a column is promising that it is a 1-to-1 relationship in both the directions. I am making point very clear. When a column is promising that it is a 1-to-1 relationship in both the directions, then definitely in that column you can promise that duplicated values can never come. The same way you just watch here, every manager should be an employee or maybe an employee. Should be an employee. Therefore you watch Blake, Clark and Jones, they are saying that they are having one manager. What is the managerial number? 7839. Watch carefully, this managerial number is something that is registered within the employees column as employee number. Therefore, registered employees only can become managers. And one manager can control one employee or many employees. Many employees. So 7839 is controlling multiple employees. The reason the managerial number is repeating. So any time in your table, if any data is repeating, there will be a reason of cardinality for that. Without understanding the reason and the rule of the cardinality, you just blindly type the queries, what happens? So I'm not interested in you people, I'm not definitely interested in you people typing the commands. Once the command gets executed, are you catching the rule? Are you catching the rule? The same way, there's one more point I want to catch up. Every employee should have a designation or may have a designation. Should have a designation. Now watch, we are looking into this designation now. See, king's designation is what? President. King's designation is president. Be clear about that. Now, the same king is controlling three employees. Who are they? Blake, Clark and Jones. King is controlling Blake, Clark and Jones. So can I say king is the manager of Blake, Clark and Jones? Can I say that? Yes. But king the designation is what? President. But by this particular three records, king is also acting like what? Manager. So try to be very careful. Manager by designation, manager by hierarchy. There are two kinds of managers in the system now. One type of managers are which managers? Managers by designation. The other type of managers are managers by hierarchy. So king is a manager or is a president? King is a manager or is a president? King is a manager by hierarchy, president by designation. Be careful. So this kind of logical construct is very important as we go down into the course slowly. Therefore, who says that with all that education you are having, these select statements are difficult for you? Nobody in the world can dare to say that these select statements are difficult to understand. I am not interested in those select statements, what you are seeing there. I am interested in whenever you write a select statement, when the select statement presents the data, are you really sure enough that data is getting presented by what rule of the system, cardinality and the state? With any project you work, any domain you work, this kind of behavior should be there. So, developing this will take time for you. That concept is more important. The same way, before we leave, I am saying select employee number, comma, e-name, then we are saying job and sal, and we are saying hire date. Every employee will have a joining date or not? Yes. So that is my hire date. Now whenever your date column is represented, I want to look into few things now. According to Oracle, whenever your date is presented, your date is always presented as DD-MON-YY. Your year is always 2-digit year in presentation. Your year is always 2-digit year in presentation. Internally, Oracle knows what is the century behind that. We will speak about the century and we will speak about everything later on. Let us not worry. But what I want to understand is, you like or you do not like, Oracle presents the date only in this style. So, your month is always abbreviated, your year is always 2 digits. Please keep that very clear in your mind now. So, anytime you are working with your dates, your date has great amount of information, but currently we are not interested in that. Only that particular part of the information is enough for us. So now I don't think there should be any great confusion behind you to write a select statement for only projecting the data or getting all the columns of the data from the table. I was too slow, I was not too complicated from my side. But now, before you leave, I want to tell you one point now. Those students who are getting ready to go and type this select statement as it is, what I gave, and they'll feel happy whenever the output is coming on your screen. Those students will never sit for many number of days in my class. You will leave after some time. Why? Because as the days are going, we will work with reasons definitely. Smallest reasons I am trying to tell you at this level will be definitely extended by tomorrow. Today we may not have any complications in the logic, but tomorrow definitely will increase the complications. So, how many number of hours you are working is not important. You are working with reason or not when you are sitting in front of your computers. So definitely you have to listen once again to the total class, what we have been conducting today. That's the only reason in the starting class itself I told you, you should definitely audio record your sessions. You will never forget these select statements, but I'll promise you the total concept I told you behind the select statements, the cardinalities, rules and everything you'll forget. Now that is very important for me. Therefore, don't practice your material blindly. And once the class is completed, your first time beginner into database, definitely minimum one more time you have to record, you should definitely listen to the session what you have recorded. And within 1 or 2 classes, my school file will be coming into your mailboxes. Whatever examples I have executed on my screen, this part of the screen will come as one Word file into your particular mailbox. And once it comes, you should open that particular file, keep the 2 plugs in your ear once again to that class, and you should scroll each time whatever I am speaking down the screen, and you should go on listening to that once again. So recording is not important. Are you saving your records very properly or not? by putting date and time to those recordings is very important. And it's maybe looking exaggeration for you now. Certain classes, minimum 5-6 times if you don't listen and you don't practice, you will never stay comfortable in the industry. See, the final goal is how much you feel comfortable in your job after you get into the industry, man. Classroom convenience is not important for me. Who says that today whatever I spoke you did not understand? So this 1 hour is not important. After this 1 hour, what is happening is more important with you. So just put your effort and see that you are in tight synchronization with me now. Anyhow, I will take care of the responsibility, how I should keep you into complications in the logic. So let us see tomorrow what exactly we can add for these simple things what we discussed today to your select statements. Thank you once again, tomorrow with you.